The Tale of Two Bad Mice. Once upon a time there was a very beautiful doll's house. It was red brick with white windows, and it had real muslin curtains and a front of door and a chimney. It belonged to two dolls called Lucinda and Jane. At least it belonged to Lucinda, but she never ordered meals. Jane was a cook, but she never did any cooking because the dinner had been bought ready-made in a box full of shavings. There were 2 red lobsters and a ham, a fish, and a pudding, and some pears and oranges. They would not come off the plates, but they were extremely beautiful. One morning, Lucinda and Jane had gone out for a drive on the doll's perambulator. There was no one on the nursery. It was very quiet. Presently, there was a little scuffling, scratching noises in the corner near the fireplace, where there was a hole under the skirting board. Tom Thumb put on his head for a moment and popped it out of it. Tom Thumb was a mouse. A minute afterwards, Hunca Munca, his wife, put her head out too, and she saw that there was no one in the nursery. She ventured out the oilcloth under the coal box. The doll's house stood at the other side of the fireplace. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went cautiously across the hearthrug. They pushed the front door. It was not fast. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went upstairs and peeped into the dining room. They saw a squeaked with joy. Such a lovely dinner, and laid out upon the table. There were tin spoons and lead knives and forks, and 2 dolly chairs, also convenient. Tom Thumb set to the work at once to carve the ham. It was beautiful, shiny yellow, streaked with red. The knife crumpled up and hurt him. He put his finger on his mouth. "It's not boiled enough. It's hard." "You have a try, Hunca Munca." Hunca Munca stood up in her chair and chopped the ham with another little knife. "It's hard as the hams are cheesemongers," said Hunca Munca. The ham broke at the plate of the jerk and rolled over the table. "Leave it alone," said Tom Thumb. "Give me some fish, Hunca Munca." Hunca Munca tried every tin spoon in the churn. The fish was glued to the dish. Then Tom Thumb lost his temper. He put the ham on the middle of the floor and hit it with the tongues of the shovel. Bang, bang, smash, smash. The ham flew all into the pieces, for underneath the shiny paint, it was made of nothing but plaster. Then there was no end to the rage and disappointment on Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca. They broke up into pudding and lobsters and pears and oranges. As the fish wouldn't come off the plate, they put on the red-hot cranky paper fire on the kitchen. But it wouldn't burn either. Tom Thumb went up in the kitchen chimney and looked up in the top, but there was no soot. While Tom Thumb was up in the chimney, Hunca Munca had another disappointment. She found some tiny canisters upon the dresser, labeled rice, coffee, sago, and when she turned them upside down, there was nothing inside except red and blue beads. Then those mice set to work and do all the mischief they could, especially Tom Thumb. He took Jane's clothes out of the chest of drawers on her bedroom, and he threw them out of the top of the floor window. But Hunca Munca had frugal mind. After pulling half the feathers out of Lucinda's bolster, she remembered that she herself was in want of the feather bed. With Tom Thumb's assistance, she carried the bolster downstairs and across the hearth rug. It was difficult to squeeze the bolster into the mouse hole, but they managed it somehow. Then Hunca Munca went back to the fetched a chair, a bookcase in a bird cage, and several small odds and ends. The bookcase and the bird cage refused to go on the mouse hole. Hunca Munca left them behind the coal box and went to fetch a cradle. Hunca Munca was just reaching with another chair. Then suddenly there was a noise of talking outside the landing. The mice rushed back to their hole, and the dolls came into the nursery. That's what I sight meant of eyes of Jane and Lucinda. Lucinda sat upon the upset kitchen stove and stared, and Jane leaned against the kitchen dresser and smiled, but neither of them made any remark. The bookcase and the bird cage were accused of the coal box, but Hunca Munca has got the cradle and some of Lucinda's clothes. Also, she had some useful pots and pans and several other things. The little girl that the doll's house belonged to said, "And I will get the doll dressed like a policeman." But the nurse said, "I'll set the mousetrap." So that was the story of two bad mice. But they were not so very, very naughty after all, because Tom Thumb paid for everything he broke. He found a crooked sixpence under the heart thumb. And upon the Christmas Eve, he and Hunca Munca stuffed it to one of the stockings of Lucinda and Jane. And very early in the morning, before anybody is awake, Hunca Munca comes with her dustpan and her broom to sweep the dolly's house.